Hey guys, how's it going? It's me, Josh Halter, owner and founder of the Bldg. You can visit my website, biodegradable.com. If you're here in Houston or surrounding areas, definitely come and check out my retail outlet shop between the hours of 8 and 4, Monday through Friday. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And today, you can see I have a pretty big chameleon cage in front of me, and I'm going to talk today about a new way to keep chameleons with utilizing a deep substrate in a screen cage. And I'm going to go over briefly over the husbandry for a Jackson's Chameleon. I'm really excited to get this cage built today. This is an 18 by 18 by 36 Zoomed Reptibreeze. On the top, I do have one of my 22-inch LEDs for plant growth. Now, the plants that I'm going to be utilizing for the chameleons are trees, because in the wild, that's what they live in. I'm going to be providing a deep layer of substrate. I'm going to explain the benefits of having a deep layer of substrate. So to get started, inside the chameleon cage, I have what I like to call my chameleon tree pouches. Now, what this is, it is essentially, it's completely round, and we put the substrate right inside here, and then we plant the tree. And you can see how tall it is and how it has handles. This can be cut and manipulated in any way that you want, so you don't have a big lip over your cage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the chameleon pouch in here. Now, initially, you are going to have gaps here on the side. As your substrate gets filled in, these gaps are going to go away. If you continue to see gaps, simply take a safety pin and just take a safety pin through the screen into here, back out through the screen and attach it. No more gap. The only type of pain that you could run into something like this is once in a while the feeder insects, the crickets, things like that could get down into the crack. However, as long as you're making sure that it's sealed, or you can stuff it with sphagnum, or just feed your chameleon from a cup, which a lot of keepers do to make sure they're getting their vitamins and nutrients and stuff, that can also be avoided. So the substrate that I like to use for chameleons is my terrarium. And I will use this for almost all chameleons, excluding like carpets and pygmy chameleons, And the firm is good because it retains all tunnels and burrows. So one of the benefits of having a deep substrate for chameleons is old world chameleons, which means chameleons that lay eggs. Almost all of them can just develop the eggs throughout their life. And they'll retain those eggs regardless if they have the opportunity to breed and don't have the opportunity to breed. And there are times that if they do not breed, they will retain those eggs for too long that they overcalcify and cause something called egg binding, which is very, very common with, again, your veiled chameleons, even panther chameleons, unfortunately. And a lot of times that does not lead to them surviving. When you provide your chameleons with a deep layer of substrate, especially your old world chameleons, you will notice a big difference, in your girls, especially around breeding season, because you give your girls opportunities to be able to dig deep layers, and since the terra firma retains all tunnels and burrows, I'll show you. They are able to tunnel and create the dens necessary for them to lay their eggs. I don't have enough in here yet. So as you can see, I have a pretty deep layer, but since I'm going to be planting a tree in here, I'm actually going to go with a little bit more. And I'm going to open up the second bag of firma, and then I can show you guys the tunneling ability once it's a little deeper. So not only does it provide your girls a place to lay their eggs, it also provides them the ability to dig and reach higher humidity levels within the substrate if they are having trouble shedding, or if they get dehydrated, which is a very common issue with a lot of your chameleons because of physiologically they are not meant to get their bodies cannot handle being dehydrated for a long time, which is why a lot of your wild caught chameleons have so many issues, and why you really have to take the initiative as a keeper to make sure that you're providing them the humidity while providing the proper aeration in their cage. Unfortunately, if it does become too stagnant, they are prone to getting fungal infections, upper respiratory infections, things like that, because they're tree-dwelling reptiles. So you can see I have 2 biodegradables in here. I have some maple leaves and some spag moss, and I am going to add them, but first I'm going to add my bio shot. So I got a 36 quart shot right here for the 1 big bag of Firma. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix that in there. And since I only used 12 quarts out of that bag, I'm actually only going to use a little bit out of here. A little bit more. So guys, I know this doesn't look like much, but this BioShot pretty much, it is packed with archaea, mycorrhizal, as well as organic fertilizer, which has a 4:4:4 NPK ratio, which essentially helps create more macronutrients for your plants, i.e. your trees, so that way when you plant them in a soil that doesn't have anything in it yet, it helps prevent them from getting shocked and having issues like that. And when you're planting trees, having a deep substrate also helps prevent them from becoming root bound, which almost all chameleon keepers that haven't been able to try this yet will tell you that their trees in their pots, they typically don't last that long because the roots just end up getting crumpled in here. So I'm gonna get the tree planted, and then I'm going to add in the spag moss and all that other good stuff. Now, there are some chameleons that in the morning, they will eat the leaves off of trees. Veiled chameleons are a great example of that. Since their biome can be pretty harsh, you know, that is something that they will readily do. Jackson's chameleons, I've never seen them eat any foliage or anything like that. That doesn't mean they don't, but I've never seen them do it. Since they are from East Africa, the Jacksons, they are a montane species, which means that Jackson chameleons like to have their overall temperature in their tank be relatively cooler, while providing a hot spot of around 85 to 90 degrees, and that allows them to properly thermoregulate, help with digestion, things like that. So I got the tree ready to go, and then I'm gonna dig all the way to the bottom. And again, this is why it's so important to have such deep substrate for the tree. And now I see how much substrate I've left over. I'm gonna add a little bit more. And of course, in all of my chameleon kits, which I'm working on adding many more soon with this method on my website, we'll give you just enough Firma to do this. You might have a little bit left, but as the Firma gets settled, you'll be able to have a pretty good implication, of how much you need to add. And I'm gonna add a little bit more BioShot in here. So I added another 12 quarts. A little bit too much. Okay. My next step to help raise humidity, as well as provide nutrition for your soil, is I'm going to add in some of the biodegradable spag moss. And to do that, I am simply going to get it opened. And then I'm going to add some water to it. The general rule of thumb is you want to get this so that way it's wet but not dripping. And you can see my bags that I package everything in hold water. This makes it super convenient. You turn it and just go right like this. And then I'm gonna take my wet but not dripping spag moss and you're gonna plop it right on top of the Firma. Now, a lot of people ask me, Josh, what happens if your chameleon ingests some of the spag moss? What happens if my chameleon ingests some of the leaves or some of the substrate? And I will tell these people, chameleons, while they are very sensitive animals, they do have very complex digestive systems because they're constantly eating huge insects, things like that, because they're opportunistic hunters. And typically, sometimes they'll stay in the same vicinity for days just waiting for something to come by. So as long as your chameleon is healthy and you are keeping them with the proper husbandry and their immune system is not compromised, I do not foresee anybody having any issues. I have kept my chameleons like this for years. My female veiled chameleon lived for a very, very long time. I believe they're almost 8, which is great for your female chameleons. So I have my layer of Firma on the top. My layer of Sphagnum on the top with the Firma and the BioShot. The next thing that I'm gonna actually add is I'm gonna add a bromeliad at the bottom. Now, I don't know if these guys would ever come across bromeliads in the wild. However, I'm putting them in here because I'm going to show you. These bromeliads have axils that hold water. So I offer bromeliads in here because it gives your chameleon options. So if they do go into the ground, they might be able to find water, fresh water in the axils, which again helps with hydration, which is extremely important. The reason I'm able to plant these bromeliads is because they're already rooted and they're in an extremely good soil that drains effectively. If you would plant them in a soil such as straight coconut fiber, they're just going to rot away in about 1 or 2 weeks. So I got the base here. I got a tree that's going to grow very, very quickly with the bromeliads in here planted directly in. Now I'm going to add some climbing. So I do have a piece of grapevine here. I am expecting this grapevine to mold a little bit, especially down here at the base because it's going to be quite humid, and that's okay. You know, if anything, it's going to make a huge difference to helping with the Jackson to have more opportunities to climb and things like that. And then we have some assorted sticks and things like that I'm going to put in here. I want to try to give them as much different climbing opportunities as I can. The closer that they can get to the UVB, the better. It's also important that you give them lots of different places to go so they can properly thermoregulate and blend in with the different times of the day, depending on what they want. Yeah, I'm going to be centralizing the heat bulb right here. The Miss King is going to be hooked up right here in the front. And then, of course, the UVB is going to be going across the top. And as you can see, I'm really concentrating up here because I want to encourage them to kind of come out in the open, especially when this grows, because all of this will get covered up and provide even more opportunities. As far as a water dish, in all my years of keeping chameleons, I've never used a water dish. Jackson Chameleons, I'm going to be running a Miss King, again, double nozzle. That's going to go off about 45 seconds twice a day. Their lights will be automatic, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And then as far as feeding goes, I will be doing some free feeding. But if we are using like dubia roaches, they will be put into a cup and dusted and gut loaded with the appropriate product. So what I gut load the crickets and insects with is the bug grub, which is really important because not only does it provide the carotenoids for them to break down these vitamins, it also has the vitamins in it, and it's 100% organic ingredients. And then, of course, I will be dusting the crickets on a rotation schedule between the pink label and the blue label. For the heating, I will be using the Nano Dome with the 35-watt halogen to provide them. I would say if he decides to bask right here, it should be about 85 degrees. And then there are some other things that you can add. So for the UVB, I will be providing the Reptisun 5.0. I like these fixtures because they last about 8 months until you have to replace the bulb, and it would fit. It's going to fit right on top here. And then, as far as other accents, we can add in, moss vines and things like that. But last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some leaf litter. Now, you guys can put microfauna in here, absolutely. Your springtails and isopods, you guys are going to notice that I didn't. And the reason that I didn't is just because it is a screen cage. And it's one of those things that put enough bioshot in here with a deep enough soil, it'll be running its own course pretty quickly. Hopefully these bromeliads put on some size sooner than later. You know, that's always what we go for. So that way it provides different drinking opportunities. And last but not least is I am going to be introducing this little guy right here. Isn't he beautiful? So there's two types of Jackson Chameleons that I know of. There's this locale from East Africa, and then there's the locale called the Mount Meru Jackson's Chameleon, which I've seen once. They are about, I think, 70% of the size of these guys as adults. And they get blue, an intense blue on their sides, and they're just absolutely beautiful. These guys are sexually dimorphic in the aspect of female Jackson Chameleons do not have the horns. The male Jackson Chameleons do have the horns, and they use them for fighting other males in the wild. And I'm also sure they use them for, you know, potentially self-defense towards predators, but obviously I've never seen that. It is very important with these guys that you always keep up with a varied diet. Chameleons, like I said, are opportunistic hunters, so they eat whatever they can get their little paws on, and it's one of those things, like, it's really important to provide a great assortment so that way they can continually get the nutritional needs that they require, since they are a little bit more of a delicate species. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's pretty empty up here, and I honestly did that because this tree is going to grow really quickly, and I always try to provide space for looking ahead for the live that's in there. And again, guys, my name's Josh Halter, owner and founder of the Bldg. You can visit my website, thebiodude.com. Dude abides.